What's going on? Welcome to the video. Today I'm going to show you how I would EQ a kick drum for a modern country song. So let's hop right in and get to it. All right, so first off, let's just go ahead and take a listen to the song that we're going to be working with today, so that way you can get a feel for the finished product. This is a song that I wrote, so I'll go ahead and link it in the description if you want to check it out.
Nothing can change the fact that it never lasts forever, no. Thought I knew it all, didn't learn from things I saw. Guess I was caught up in the moment and it's all my fault. But I can't take nothing back, doesn't matter where I'm at. All I know deep inside is that never again will I waste my days afraid of letting go. And never again will I be the one who's hurt but won't let it show. I took the lonely way home on a back road, but the windows roll down as the wind blows. I'm tired of giving up, and I'm tired of giving in. I try to make it right, but never again. Oh, 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 no, never again, no, never again. Take it all in as I go.
All right, so with drum recordings, nothing is going to be consistent from a song to song basis. There are a lot of variables that come into play, like who the drummer is, the drum set they're using, the miking techniques, the preamps, and also the room that the drums are recorded in. But the approach and method that I use to EQ the kick is very straightforward. And just a quick side note, anytime you're working with live drums, you're likely going to have a kick in and a kick out microphone recording. Now the kick in mic is placed inside the kick drum and it's going to be aimed at the beater. So the signal is going to have a little bit more snap and attack to it, whereas the kick out mic is going to be placed outside the kick and it's going to have a little bit more power and woofiness to it. So essentially you can blend the two together to kind of find the right balance between the two that you like for your own mix. So if we come over here to the mixer, we can solo our kick in microphone, and you'll also notice that I have some plugins already loaded on this mixer channel. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn off the EQ and the compressor. Now I am going to leave the noise gate plugin activated on the kick, and all this is doing is removing the bleed from the cymbals and the snare. Now I'm gonna come over here to the kick sub bus and turn off the plugins that I have loaded here, and then also turn off the plugins that I have loaded on the drum bus. And then you can see over here on the master channel, I already have the master plugins turned off. So essentially, all we're gonna be hearing now is the raw audio coming from the kick in microphone, aside from the noise gate that I have loaded. All right, so we have a fresh EQ plugin loaded here on the kick in, and you can use any EQ that you like. Here, I'm going to be using the F6 by Waves. That's my go-to EQ that I use a lot. So first off, I just like using a simple high pass filter to remove some of the really low sub frequencies that I don't necessarily want. So let's go ahead and press play and just kind of drag the filter up until we have it where it feels good. All right, so that sounded pretty good right there. You don't want to drag this high pass filter up too much and really kill the low end. Right here, I have it set at 30 Hertz. You probably don't want to go higher than like 30 or 40 Hertz. And honestly, the high pass filter is optional, but to me, it really helps kind of clean up the low end of the kick and ultimately clean up the low end in your mix. All right, so next up at about 50 or 60 Hertz, I usually always apply a gentle boost here on the kick in mic just to kind of give it a little bit more low end power. All right, so that's sounding nice right there. It just adds a little bit more power and reinforcement to the low end. Now, next up, I find right here at the 100 Hertz range, when you're boosting at 60 Hertz, just applying a small cut at the 100 to 120 Hertz range can help tighten up that boost that you did right here at 60. So let's go ahead and press play and just kind of take a listen to what that 100 Hertz range sounds like. Okay, so yeah, it did sound a little uncontrolled here at 100 hertz. So I pulled it back just a bit, didn't go crazy, just 2.5 decibels, but just a little to kind of clean it up. So next up here in the 200 to 300 hertz range is very often a good spot to cut. The low mids here can just kind of sound muddy, and your whole drum mix will sound better when you kind of dial this specific area back a little bit. Okay, so right there at 233 hertz, I thought it sounded pretty awful. So now it's sounding much better. When those low mids are controlled, it actually kind of opens up the low end and the top end a bit more and makes it easier for us to hear the frequencies that we actually want to hear in the kick drum with clarity. Now, depending on the recording, you might have to cut more or less, but don't be afraid to be aggressive here with the EQ. Now, moving up in the frequency spectrum, I like to cut up here at around 1,000 hertz, like the 800 to 1,000 hertz area, because this just kind of has this pokey, roomy sound to it. So let's go ahead and just take a listen to what that sounds like. Okay, so depending on the kick drum recording itself, this area can be a little bit more problematic than others, but the best way to kind of describe what it sounds like is like a ball bouncing off the wall. And it really wasn't that evident in this kick, so I didn't really pull out too much of that frequency. But if you do, boost right there and you hear that roomy sound to it, definitely don't be afraid to dial that back. Okay, so next up, I like to boost up here at around 4K. This is just going to help bring out some of the upper mid-range presence to the kick, and it's really going to help the kick cut through the mix. All right, so at about 4,300 hertz was the sweet spot to my ear, but definitely try to sweep around, and sometimes even going down to the 3,000 hertz area can be a good spot to boost. But somewhere in the upper mids, you want to boost just to kind of bring out some of that attack in the kick drum. All right, so last up, I like to put a high shelf boost on the top end of the kick. Usually around 8 to 10,000 hertz is where I apply this shelf. And again, this just kind of brings out the brightness and the top end clickiness of the kick and helps our ears to hear the kick better in a full mix. All right, so next up, what I'm gonna do is play the kick in mic, and I'm gonna bypass the EQ on and off so you can hear the difference. All right, so to me, I heard a huge difference when the EQ was turned on. It just sounded more cleaner and it had a lot more clarity in the top end. So that's typically how I would EQ the kick in mic for drums. Now, I don't always do those exact frequencies, but those are the frequency ranges that I'm typically looking at. Now, next up, let's go ahead and move over here to the kick out mic, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna turn off the EQ and the compression that I have loaded on the kick out, so that way we can just kind of start with a clean slate. Now, I'm gonna process this kick drum mic a little different from the kick in because since it's on the outside of the kick, it's not gonna have as much of that attack sound to it. The kick out mic is typically gonna have a lot more bottom end and woofiness to it. And that's really what I'm going to use it for in the mix. It's basically here to kind of reinforce the low end and supplement the kick-in mic that might not have as much low end. So let's go ahead and press play and take a listen. And the first thing we'll do is just apply a high pass filter to kind of clean up those really low sub frequencies. All right, next up, what I'm gonna do is cut the low mid area like I did on the kick in mic. So anywhere from about 200 to 300 Hertz is where it's just gonna sound muddy. Okay, so to me, that area just sounds kind of boxy right there. So I like to remove that pretty aggressively. And again, it's just gonna open things up and it's gonna allow us to kind of hear the other frequencies better. Now, I'm also going to do a low end boost on the kick out mic like I did on the kick in mic. So right here at around 60 Hertz is really gonna help solidify the low end and kind of give it even more of a foundation. All right, so that sounds really good to my ear. Now, I don't want to do any boosting or anything up here on the top end of the kick because I do have the kick in microphone to kind of give the kick its brightness and its attack. So let's take another listen to the kick out mic and I'll bypass the EQ on and off so that way you can hear the difference. Okay, so the last thing we'll do is I'm gonna go ahead and unmute the kick in mic and we're gonna play these two together so that way you can kind of hear how they're gonna work together to kind of give you the kick sound that you're wanting.
I'm tired of giving in. I try to make it right, but never again. Oh, 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 no, never again. No, never again.
Okay, so when I played the kick in and the kick out mic together, it just sounded more cohesive and full. And then when I muted the kick in mic, it lost a lot of the top end attack to it. And then when I muted the kick out mic, it just lost a lot of the low end body. So together, the two mics are working, in tandem to kind of craft the sound that you want for the kick inside your mix. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.